maybe I'm biased because I made it, or we made it, but I don't actually think it looks ugly.
Well, I think it kind of does because, but like in a good way. And
Okay.
like when you look at it, you know that people made it on purpose. Okay, so we designed an ugly website on purpose and we decided to talk about it because we've been working in conversion optimization or website optimization, whatever you want to call it, for many years now. And then like last year, we quit our jobs as CROs to do more CRO. So we started a company and we needed a website. Probably important to say that neither of us are designers, but we worked with many designers, and that's why we wanted to try to design our own website as well.
Well, basically every website that I've made in the past always ends up with a really under-designed look. So this time we kind of just decided to embrace that and have that be like the purpose from the beginning, which is sort of, we'll get into this later, but a bit of a response to typical website designs that end up being on the opposite end of the spectrum of being over-designed at the expense of more important considerations.
As a optimizer, you always work on someone else's website that has already been created and has existed for a long time. And then you, as a conversion optimizer, you just kind of look at the behavior and do some analysis on it and then try to improve the existing state of the website. But it's been like an interesting process where now we had to create everything from scratch. And for me, it's been like a first. I've never created a website on my own before, I think. But I guess you have before, right?
Yeah, even then, the better looking ones were working with the previous design and just kind of making tweaks to it. And I guess it's also like a more general thing where it's a lot easier to criticize other people's work than it is to do that yourself in the first place.
Yeah, totally. It's like, and you don't have like anything to work with when you start. It's like when you do kind of like customer research on other people's website, you at least see some kind of, hiccups that users have, or, you can actually gather data about what's wrong with it. But like when you start from scratch, you don't even you have no idea what it's going to be or how people will end up using it. Or an ugly website. What do we mean by that? Because ugly is obviously like a very subjective term, but I guess it sort of ties into what you said about like not making it overly visually and aesthetically pleasing, rather than focusing on the content and the copy that goes on the website and just making it as bare bones as possible. And when we sort of started thinking about, the whole process of, okay, we need to create a website for our business, like what should it look like? Then for some reason, we both kind of gravitated towards the idea of like a very, I don't know, like regular wireframe, I guess. And then like when we sort of started out as optimizers, the main tool I think we both used was balsamic mockups, and like we use Figma as well, of course. But somehow we both kind of like remembered the cool look that balsamic has, because it's so simple. Like they don't have like a lot of visual options there. It's like I don't know, how would you even describe that style?
Yeah, it's like there's just kind of a simple default version of a lot of elements, and the reason I like balsamic is, for me, it's like a really quick and low friction way to get a wireframe together. And like I use Figma and I've been using it for, I don't know, probably years now. And it's still just like doesn't feel like smooth and easy just to like quickly throw something together that just kind of acts as like a communication tool for like what is the point of this design or this particular element that you're designing and stuff.
But it's so funny that you think that, because I think that's exactly the point of Figma and how other people use it, because it's so much more easier to communicate there and like with the comments and like.
Yeah, that's
but I
true.
think it like takes a lot more time to learn that tool. Like it has like a bigger learning curve, and you almost need to know stuff about design and other design tools to be good at it. And like it took me like a really long time to get a hold of it as well, I think.
Yeah.
Compared to Balsamic.
It's almost like Photoshop. It has like Photoshop has a huge learning curve, and like Figma is kind of a full-featured design tool with like layers and all kinds of stuff. So it's not really a wireframing tool, and I think that's why it doesn't like work that well for me for just like quickly getting an idea down.
And also it has this like cool, just kind of comical aesthetic about it almost, where it's like, I don't know, it's just like fun to look at or something.
Yeah, and speaking of comical, we should probably mention the font.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so when you first look at our website, you might think that the font we used is Comic Sans. It is not. It's not Comic Sans, it's Balsamic Sans. And we had this discussion, we had a heated discussion, I think, about what kind of font to use for a website.
Was it heated?
I mean, like, we were torn, I think. We tried out different options and stuff. And then it kind of like, when we took that design and put these like random fonts in that to see what works, it just totally lost the look and feel that we were going for, at least for me, I think.
Maybe we should kind of expand on that as well. Like when you say look and feel, you're talking about how we wanted to go with sort of a wireframe look. So not only like did we use Balsamic, but like as CROs, the typical deliverable for our part of the work is a wireframe. So we thought it was kind of appropriate that our website that is, pitching our services as optimizers would kind of look like what our deliverable is, which is just a wireframe.
So should we pull up our original wireframe?
Let's bring it up.
So, but like we're showing it to you in Figma, even though we did it in Balsamic. That's like almost like evidence of its own that Balsamic is still not capable of the entire process. We still had to like put it all in Figma and sort of like create it there so we can actually make it usable for the development stage of the site as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is kind of what we're talking about, the general like Balsamic look and feel. Like this is typically what you'd produce as a wireframe, and then the designer would come and actually like add some design to this to make it actually look
color
better.
And pictures and whatever.
Yeah, background, gradients, all sorts of things.
Yeah, so this is obviously like a very backwards process that we did. Like nobody in their reasonable brain would go about designing a website like this, that you do something in Balsamic and then you have to put it in Figma and then start from zero at there, and it's kind of tedious, but it was just necessary, I guess, for our process, because we really wanted to achieve that kind of a basic vibe that Balsamic has. As we mentioned, we started a company last year, and we do CRO services still, but since we're not basic and we don't want to have a boring website, we decided to treat our own website as an ongoing live case study almost, where we create it and at the same time try to talk about it, like why we do the things we do there and what's the reasoning behind it and so on. So basically the point of the website is partly, of course, the services. There is a service page, but also the main focus of it will be content. And this is partly about the video you're watching at the moment. So when you look at this website now, after we publish this video, the thumbnail of this video will be there. And we also plan to write some blog posts. Already did a couple. And this first kind of video is us talking about more of the design, and then how we went about it, and what's the thought process behind it, so to say. Which is still, yeah, kind of like a weird thing for us, I guess, to talk about, since we're not actually designers. So we're talking about it from a purely like optimization viewpoint of how we created the structure of the page.
Yeah, and then longer term, tying into the creating content, like this is kind of the first example of a challenge that we're facing, or not like a challenge, just like part of the process of building our business and building its online presence. But there's, you know, so much stuff that goes into that, and that's the main kind of idea behind creating this content, or at least a good chunk of it, is sharing our journey in doing this and the different considerations and decisions that go into building an online presence and building a brand, and then sharing that with you.
Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
There's like so many decisions to make, starting from creating the logo, I don't know, choosing the colors, thinking about the functionality of what you want to have on your site. But I guess like the main thing that we both really wanted and talked about since the beginning is that the site needs to be as simple as possible, and especially like visually. So it's all about the content and the kind of structure of it, I guess. So it will be super easy to use. You don't have lots of visual distractions and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And it would also look maybe a bit different.
Sort of tying back to the ugly thing, it's more like minimalist and not overly aesthetic would maybe be a better term for it. Mm-hmm. Because I'm biased because I made it, or we made it, but I don't actually think it looks ugly.
Well, I think it kind of does, because but like in a good way, and
okay.
Like when you look at it, you know that people made it on purpose.
Mm.
It's not like, I don't know, when you look at something ugly, you're like, oh, this is ugly, and like people don't know what they're doing. It's like, that's the kind of vibe that I want. It's like, I made it ugly on purpose.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, and that also ties in with the differentiation and like trying to be like a bit dramatically like different than anything else out there.
Yeah, and from a conversion perspective too, there's a lot that goes into this. Like, minimalist designs are typically rated as being more appealing to start with. And then there's lots of examples out there of websites that most people look at and just be horrified. Like Ling's Cars is kind of the classic example, where it's just the most busy, just like assault on your senses kind of thing, but it's also a very successful online business.
Can you pull that up? The site that you're talking about?
Ling's Cars?
Yeah.
It's horrifying. but it works. So ours isn't ugly in this sense, like a overwhelming craziness kind of thing with all this movement and too many colors, and I don't even know how people use this website. Like, it's amazing to me.
Maybe they use it as like we do right now to show it like what not to do.
Maybe, but I mean, it's like people.
But it's kind of fun to look at, even like it's like also so different or something, right?
Yeah, and I don't remember seeing this kind of psychedelic paisley theme before, so they must.
It kind of reminds me of the Windows Media Player thingy that is so hypnotic that you can look at it for like hours and stuff.
Those like visualization things.
Yeah. Like I feel like I could look at this website for like 3 hours and be like hypnotized or something.
Yeah.
I guess we should also talk about like, what is the point of having a website at all as a super small business or consultants? Because there are a lot of people who like don't make a website because there's so many platforms nowadays, like LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, that you can almost treat as your website, where you can have people contact you, have leads come in, put all your information on, whatever. But the problem with those platforms is that you don't own your data, right? And that's like, for us, one of the main points is, of course, that, you know, we work with websites, so it would be super weird not to have one.
I think another consideration is whatever platform you're thinking of, not everybody's on that platform. Like, there's lots of people that just delete Facebook and get tired of it and never want to go back. There's lots of people that just don't use LinkedIn, like maybe they have an account but they hardly ever log in there and stuff. So like having a website is like a property that you own, and then you can treat all the different social platforms or whatever just as a distribution method for your content or for your website. And then there's also to think about like intent levels and stuff. So a lot of times people will be scrolling on Facebook or LinkedIn, kind of passively consuming content, and maybe you can get your content in front of them and then influence their thought process, get into their consideration set. But when it comes time to actually take action, usually people will go to like Google search or something like that. So in that sense, you don't want to just exist in one platform that has maybe a tendency towards a certain intent level, especially lower intent level ones. So use lower intent for distributing content, and then have a place where you can drive them to when they're actually ready to, pull the trigger or get in touch with you.
A platform can just be shut down, or you can get deplatformed or whatever, like,
yeah.
And then you'll have nothing to do about it. Like, it's way better to start building your community and own your data on your website, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, whatever you sell on your website, is it your services, is it a product, you should have an email sign-up form where, maybe you want to do a newsletter, maybe you just want to notify people that follow you when you put out new content or when you do a sale or whatever. So that's also like something that I've noticed people kind of tend to forget. It's like, even though when they do a little website for their business or something, they don't have this specific like call to action or something to capture their audience.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, email marketing is still quite relevant. Like, people think, oh, email is such an old technology, it's so boring, people use all this other stuff now. But we've done optimization and looked at a lot of analytics accounts, and email traffic coming to a website is consistently the highest converting traffic. So if you're just looking at from a conversion perspective, email is still like a very powerful way to communicate with your user base or your audience, your customers, and to keep them coming back to the site. And even just like from a content perspective, say like all you're doing is creating a blog and you want to post, whatever, once a week, couple times a week. If you look at graphs of blogs that, publish content, then you get like a blip in traffic, and then, dips down a bit, publish content, new blip in traffic, compared to one that is sending out emails to their subscriber base every time they publish something new, and then it's actually like blip in content, and then it's this line that's consistently going up, and the blips just keep compounding on one another.
Anything that I read about it, it's always that, okay, this is the best kind of way to capture people into your audience and communicate with your audience and whatever. And then at the same time, it's like people put so much more effort into social media and PPC and like stuff like that.
Yeah, I think because email is kind of boring. There's also negative connotations with all the spam that people get and that sort of thing. I think it sort of gets overlooked. Yeah,
social media has become like so much more sexier, I guess. It's like, and it's kind of immediate as well. It's like people think that, you're always on social media anyway, but that's the thing, you get bombarded with so much information that it's hard to differentiate almost.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the intent for the people who actually sign up for your email list will be much higher. It's like they actually want to follow you. There are of course like so many different platforms you can use if you don't have programming capabilities, which is like a really good thing these days, that anybody can start a website because you don't really need a developer anymore. You can do things yourself, but there's also lots of limitations with those platforms, and if you work with websites on a daily basis, you see those limitations. and you get very annoyed at these platforms. And it's just like kind of, if you want to do something more sophisticated with tracking or design even, they kind of hold you back rather than help you.
For me, I get frustrated really quickly when I'm trying to work with templates. So, and this can be like, you know, WordPress or something like Squarespace, or, you know, Webflow is kind of more on the configurable side of things. But you're basically just starting with a bunch of boxes that you have to try and fit your content into, rather than having your like copy and your content be primary and then have the form follow the function, so to speak. And so it's like you end up spending a lot of time just trying to like fight against other people's assumptions and design decisions. And even with something like Webflow, if you're familiar with it, it's a very popular platform. It's gaining steam. It's like has a really sizable market share for websites these days, and it's one of these no-code tools. But even that, like, it's pretty limiting. The degree that you can configure it, it almost depends on how well you know CSS, because the things that you can customize on it are basically just like a graphical interface for CSS classes and CSS rules and stuff. And so for me personally, with a development background, there's no advantage there really. It would be way easier for me to just write the CSS rather than like click through all these little menus and then try and figure out Webflow's interpretation of how to apply these classes to these different repeatable components and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that that's the right answer for everybody. Like for somebody that doesn't have development skills, then going with some sort of template approach probably makes more sense if you don't want to pay for a developer and you're just getting started and stuff like that. So it's very much like a question of you know, your situation versus what you're trying to accomplish and the resources you have available to you.
Totally. There's no shame in using templates. No hate on templates. We just didn't want to go that way.
No hate on them. I just hate them. So considering that, you know, one, we wanted to have good control over basically all aspects of the site. We want to be able to customize everything, you know, build everything from scratch, not, you know, trying to work from the outside in. We want to work from the core out, build the design and the layout around the content that we're producing. So there's still some options there. Like WordPress is still, I think 40% of the websites on the internet are still on WordPress. And I've used WordPress a fair amount in the past and basically didn't want to use WordPress this time because of how inefficient and bloated and slow it is. So like there's some speed studies that people have done on WordPress where even just the tool that you use, the editing tool, like Elemental is one of the most popular ones. That tool itself slows down the website by like a lot, by half a second or a second load speed, which is lots when it comes to like site loading times. So basically I wanted to go with something new. I wanted to leapfrog a lot of the stuff that's happened in the internet world since WordPress was kind of popular. And WordPress itself is kind of just like a version of a very common site architecture where it's basically PHP with a database backend and stuff.
But it's also like an interesting tool in the sense of everything new happens through plugins, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like all the developers that I've sort of worked with, they all kind of get annoyed at those because the maintenance is like so cumbersome or something.
Yeah, it's there's almost no good option when it comes to WordPress plugin maintenance. There's the two options are set things to auto update or don't.
Which is dangerous.
Yeah, so like if you don't update your plugins, then if enough time goes by, eventually one of those plugins will have a vulnerability that will get discovered and somebody will exploit it. They'll just like basically just crawl the web for WordPress sites that have that plugin, and then they'll use it to either steal information or just attack your website and make it go down. I've had like SQL injection attacks where they basically just wipe out your entire database and your website has nothing on it anymore. So then, okay, you want to keep on top of like updates to plugins to make sure that the security is up to date. And then that has the problem where plugins updating automatically will just fight each other and end up breaking the website from that perspective. So in order to actually do it properly, you have to not update things automatically, but do it manually and make sure that you actually QA everything, like update a plugin, see what has broken because of that update, fix the website, update the next plugin, etc., etc. And like the more functionality you want to add, the more plugins you need to have, and it can get to a point where you have, you know, dozens of plugins and you're spending a lot of time just like keeping them all up to date and working together properly. What we ended up going with was basically more modern website platform technology. So this is also something that we can get into in more detail if people are interested, and I don't want to like completely bore all the non-technical people out there, so I'm going to keep it kind of brief. But it's basically the trend towards like cloud computing, serverless architectures. It's called Jamstack, which is basically just means, you know, JavaScript APIs and Markdown. So I'm not going to like explain what all that means, but
Not associated with regular jam.
no, unfortunately not. But the advantages of going with this are it's really fast. So every user that loads the website, they're basically getting the entire website served to them from the nearest endpoint, the nearest cloud endpoint or CDN endpoint, if you know about like content delivery networks and stuff like that. So instead of having like one server located in one geographic area and everybody around the world that accesses it has to send a request to that specific server in that region, it's coming from like some cached location very close to you. So what that means is the website is going to be very fast, which is important for, you know, user experience, which is important for conversion performance, it's important for SEO. So that's one of the main reasons that we decided to go with that.
So how fast do you think our website is going to be?
I don't know, very fast. I'm aiming for like 100% Lighthouse score, basically. If we get less than 100%.
Have you ever even seen that for any website?
Not unless it was like made with this kind of technology. Like I've seen a couple of examples. But you have seen
websites that have 100.
Oh yeah, it's attainable for sure. Yeah.
I thought it was some sort of unachievable dream.
No, if we get less than 100, then I'm gonna have to dig into it and figure out why and, and fix it. Behold.
Behold. Basically, our homepage is divided into 5 sections. First section, of course, is the hero, which is the best, the most juicy real estate area of any website, where you should have a nice little value prop that explains what your business does. And then usually there's some kind of nice image there, or some kind of CTA or sign-up form, as we have done here. But basically, we also had a lot of trouble coming up with a value prop, which is also funny because that is our job to do for other people. And we've helped lots of companies craft better value props and test different ones in terms of what kind of works with copy and intent and whatever. But for our business, since it's so split at the moment between doing services and content, it was kind of hard to come up with a one sentence thing that would explain both really well. Mm-hmm. So what we did was we decided to go with a meme option where we almost go into this like meta mindset about, you know, just telling people that this is where you should put a good value proposition that explains what your site is about.
Yeah, I mean, like, this fits in with the overall theme of the content that we want to make, and also the services, in the sense that we're trying to help people make good websites or help their website perform better. So yeah, why not go a little bit meta with it? Also fits in with the kind of wireframey vibe, where very often in a wireframe you don't put the actual content, you just put something about like, you know, image goes here, value prop goes here type of thing, and the idea that somebody will fill that in later.
We didn't really want to put just random images and illustrations on our website. That is also like a very common theme these days. Like, you know, lots of companies use these stick figure people that are unproportioned and kind of everyone can relate to and whatever. I totally forget the name of that art style.
It's Allegro or Allegra?
Yeah. That one. I mean, some companies use like really good photos if they have some kind of product pictures or something like that, and that is of course like a good way to go. Since we don't sell anything physical, we don't have product photos. I mean, we could put a picture of our cats on there, but probably that would be too much of a meme as well.
Oh, maybe we should consider that in the longer term.
Since we talked about how important it is to grow your email base and, you know, capture your audience, we wanted to put a little sign-up form there where you can subscribe, and then we will send you an email if a new video or an article goes up. You have to obviously choose a service that helps you manage your email list and people. And we at the moment are thinking of going with, what's it called?
ConvertKit. It's created for and marketed to content creators and artistic types and that sort of thing. So we're thinking that it makes sense to use a platform that is kind of made for our use case. And there's lots of other good options out there, like say something like Klaviyo is top of mind for a lot of people, but its niche is more e-commerce type of sites that have more complex automation and logic for email sequencing.
Yeah, almost like on an enterprise level, where I worked with it like a little bit for a client, and the possibilities are endless. I mean, we just felt that it's kind of too excessive for where we are at the moment, especially because we don't really plan. Well, we don't even have an email list at the moment.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, another thing about ConvertKit is I've kind of been following the founders since they started it, and so it's been kind of cool seeing it grow from basically humble beginnings into like a very popular business that's doing quite well and stuff. And so it's kind of been in the back of my mind as wanting to give it a try for a while. And also they have a free tier for up to 1,000 subscribers, and once we hit that limit, then it's only, I think, $30 a month or something. So it's pretty comparable to the other tools out there. There are cheaper ones, but yeah, I think that's what we're gonna end up going with. At the moment, the form that you're seeing isn't actually connected to anything because we haven't actually signed up and done all that work yet, but it's gonna look the same anyway. Just depends on what happens when you click that button.
Yeah, and that's also kind of like a important consideration, especially from an optimization viewpoint, of what happens when you fill out a form and click the button. One thing is that something that indicates that you were successful in your form fill should definitely happen. That can mean creating a separate thank you page, for example. Or we are actually considering just changing the state of the little box where the form is in to just say that, hey, you subscribed, everything worked, congratulations. Just want to like have the form have a different state for when you've already subscribed, because it sort of doesn't make sense for you to like keep scrolling or, you know, looking at the other stuff on the site if you still see the same form you've already filled out. Like, it's not relevant for you. So that's something to keep in mind. But another consideration is, of course, tracking as well. Like, you want to track the form fills and you know, how many leads you're getting, and that's like way easier to do with a thank you page actually. So just kind of a balance there, I guess.
Yeah, we're basically going to forego having easy tracking in favor of having a better user experience so that we're not just pestering people with the same form everywhere that they've already filled out. So also, like, because of the site platform that we're using, it's based on React, and one of the advantages of React is that it has a concept of state for components. So that means that it's, I mean, not super easy, but at least possible to just have like a different version of this little box for people who have not subscribed versus people who have subscribed. And then, you know, even though it's not as easy to track based on a page view like it would be with a thank you page, it's at least doable to push an event to Google Analytics that we can use to in order to like analyze website performance and use that as a goal for, you know, people subscribing successfully to the email list.
No, this is just an MVP of our site. And then the hero area, as I said, is the best area, you know, to put your most important stuff on there. So you really have to think about what do you want to prioritize. And we had those discussions already as well. Like, should it maybe even be our latest video? That's the main call to action in the hero. But then we decided that since, you know, building an audience and, you know, having like a follower base is kind of important for our business, we want to put the sign-up form as the main thing in the hero.
Yeah, that's basically the most important action that we want people to take on the website, is subscribe to the list. So then when we do publish content, which is also up there, like people watching the show, reading the blog articles, those are also really important. But in the kind of broader context, we want to be able to let people know that a new show is on the website so that we can maximize the chances of people coming to the site to actually watch it and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that being said, it's just the first thing that we're putting out in the world. And we don't even know if it works. Like, maybe nobody cares. And that's something that we're going to experiment with. And as we gather more data and see how people actually behave on our site, we might change this area completely. We might put something totally different there. We might put a picture of our cats there because that's what people like. And we don't know at this point because we haven't launched this website yet. But we will, and we will do tracking and research and find out. The next area is about the show, the video you're watching at the moment. So since we plan on the videos being a very big component of our business, that's what we wanted to push next here. And basically this block will just show you the latest video and a little description of it. And then there's a button where you can click to see all of the episodes, and it lights up nicely when you hover on it, so it's more exciting.
Look at that hover effect.
Yeah, look at that. Oh, and we also still haven't decided if we are going to launch this video series as a podcast kind of a thing, but we wanted to put like just an audio option there as well for people who don't want to watch the video. So this is not the best UX because it's the Chrome thingy, right?
Yeah, this little player that you see here is just the default HTML audio player. And so it's really dependent on how the browser renders it. And like in Chrome right now, you can see that it just says 0. Like, it doesn't actually tell you how long it is. And you also can't seek anywhere. Like, you can't skip to the middle or anything. All you can do is play it from the beginning, and then, you know, you can pause it at different times and stuff like that. But even in, like, Firefox, you can do these things. It tells you how long it is. You can skip to whatever part of it that you want to and stuff. So longer term, especially if we do end up turning this into a podcast, then we'll use a better player that kind of renders more consistently across different browsers and provides a bit of a better user experience. We're going to be publishing this stuff on a YouTube channel, so you know, that's one part of it. Like, YouTube is so massively popular, still growing, so it's a really great place for video content, and so it's kind of a no-brainer of whether or not to publish on YouTube. And then, you know, the other question is, like, should we embed the video on the site or just send people away? And we want to keep people on the site more so that they will maybe consume more content, read some articles maybe, more of a chance that they'll subscribe to our list and that sort of thing. And also, when you embed a YouTube video into your website, you still get credit for those views as if the person was watching it on the YouTube platform itself. So there's not really much of a downside to doing this. Another thing we're doing is like disabling the video recommendations. So if people watch the episode here, they're not going to get sent off on all these different rabbit holes based on random stuff that YouTube is suggesting to them. So we're kind of increasing the chances that they're going to keep watching some more of our content rather than just, going down a YouTube rabbit hole like happens all the time. And then the other consideration is like other video platforms, which is something that we might experiment with. YouTube is kind of the least customizable when it comes to embedding on your website. So there's other platforms like Vimeo or Wistia, and those ones give you a lot more control over designing how the player looks. They're also better from a video analytics perspective, so you get a lot more data on how much of the video people watch, what are the common points where they're dropping off, stuff like that. So, something we'll think of down the road, but then that will kind of be balanced off by, say we embed like a Wistia video on our website, then when they watch that, that doesn't contribute to our YouTube channel, video views, metrics, and trying to build that presence on that platform.
Next up, we have the blog section. And this is like super basic. It's also kind of like a deliberate decision. Like, I just really personally don't like, or I mean, not even don't like, but it kind of bothers me when just random blog articles have these stock images that have nothing to do with the article itself.
Mm.
And also it's like kind of a headache as well. Like I've written a couple of blog articles in the past, and it's like, and then when the template is built as such where you have to put this picture next to it, it almost, that's the part that took me the most time, is like I can't decide what picture to put there because it doesn't matter anyway. So yeah, at least at first we decided that we're not gonna overwhelm ourselves with this trivial task of choosing stock images for our blog articles, and we're just gonna go ahead and publish the little description and title, and then maybe inside the article, like if we want, we can add some images if they're relevant somehow, but here on the homepage it's all about the content itself.
Very clean and basic and to the point.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to get something down there that is at least a good enough initial description of what we do. And then also the services that we're offering are not necessarily interesting to everybody that's going to be in our audience for the videos and the blog content and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a little subset of the overall audience that we're going for here. And that's also why, we're not pushing it very much. It's one of the last sections on the website. The website is primarily about the content, and then if there are people who are kind of in the right market for our services, then we want to have that content there so that they can understand what we do and understand whether or not it's for them. But for the most part, it's not the highest priority for the website.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, CRO services is a topic that we can probably talk for 5 hours and launch a separate series. Or the homepage comes to an end with basically the same form that is on the hero area, because it's always good to keep your CTAs consistent throughout the page. And if people go through the trouble of scrolling on your long page and get to the end, and then they want to maybe subscribe, just give them the option. Make it easy for them. Don't make them go all the way back up.
Yeah, the general thought is, have it there at the top in case people are ready to subscribe right away. But if not, you know, they're scrolling down, checking out the rest of the content, read an article or two, and then end up at the bottom, then there's just another try at getting them to sign up.
The homepage is pretty versatile, I would say. But overall, the structure of the site is kind of simple. Like, from each of these blocks, you can go to sort of like a category page. Like, you can go to a page that has all of the show episodes or all of the blog articles. And then we also have an individual page for all of the episodes and articles. And that's also something that we discussed at first, like, does it even make sense to do? But if you know what SEO is and what Google likes, then you know that these individual pages probably will be beneficial, because you can write out like more specifically what the episode or the article is about, and when people search for it, it's easier for them to find it. And also, yeah, people can just stay on the same page, look at the video, maybe scan through what it is about, and navigate on our own site.
Yeah, and also, like, SEO is a big component for that, like having a bit more complex of a site structure rather than just having everything on one page, or just having all of the show episodes or blog articles on a single page. You know, you get URLs that will be specific to that topic. So if we start, you know, once we get going and we have shows on a bunch of different topics, then it's pretty useful to have like one page that has that in the URL, and then also in the description, and then the content on that page is about that topic. So it kind of casts a wider net for the search engines for people to be able to find us that way. And then also, just from like a user experience perspective, if we do a show like this, for example, and we're mentioning different, you know, tools or resources, then we want to have a place to put that, so we can have this like longer like post about the show or about the episode where we can include resources and sort of an explanation for, you know, so that people will understand like what's going on in it.
Yeah, it kind of has the same vibe as the YouTube description box, I guess, where people put this information. But, you know, we don't want you to go to YouTube. We want you to stay on our site. So we will put the same information for you here. So you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, and then if we tried to accomplish all of this on one overview page, then it would just end up getting pretty cluttered, and we plan to make a lot of these, and so this would end up being a really big, long page. So.
Also, yeah, keep your sign-up form on all of the pages, if you can. It's
there
important.
It is again.
Yeah, services page, also pretty simple, mostly revolves around the copy. I think one thing we should mention is that there's also a sign-up form, but it's a different one from what we have on the other pages, because the leads that come on this page are obviously very different from the leads or the people that, you know, want to know about our content.
Yeah, exactly. So the email sign-up form basically will just go directly to our email platform, and it's adding people to the email list. But when it comes to somebody that wants to get in touch with us because they're interested in our services, then we need different functionality. So the way that this works is when people fill it out, it goes into our like sales CRM system. And that's kind of like where we organize the leads and send out proposals and kind of have the pipeline of people from initial contact through to becoming a customer. And then it also notifies us in Slack. So when someone fills out this form, we get a little notification in our Slack workspace that somebody new is wanting to get in touch with us, so that we can very quickly respond to them and, you know, see if it's a good fit and possibly get a new customer.
And like down the line, probably there are much better options where people can, you know, pick specific times on Calendly or whatever, or like, you know, depending on what you intend to do in terms of your communication or customer support or whatever. But yeah, we just decided to send it on Slack because it's easy access, can have a look right away, and so on.
Yep.
And also this form is probably like, you know, it's basic, it's an MVP, like it will have lots of improvements in the future, depending on our volumes and how much we want to qualify the leads before somebody decides to sign up and stuff. So
yeah, we deliberately decided to leave it fairly open-ended. Like a lot of companies will right away start putting up these hurdles and roadblocks to make sure that only the exact right people can get in touch with them for their services, like saying, do you have a certain amount of revenue per year, a certain amount of traffic? But we're just kind of getting started out with this, and we don't even know that there's going to be a problem with too many unqualified people trying to get in touch with us. So, initially we're just going to leave it open, and then if it does become an issue, if there's just lots of people signing up who just are not a good fit for our services, then we can, tighten it down a little bit, add some more fields that qualify the prospects before they get in touch with us. Otherwise, like you said, this is kind of basic. We're actually even violating some form optimization principles here, because as you can see, the field labels are just the placeholder text. So as soon as you start to type something, then it goes away. And form optimization best practices will say that you should have a persistent label, above the field, not just use the placeholder. But also, we're pretty sure that the people that might be interested in our services are a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to being familiar with how to use websites and work with a form that's maybe not completely optimized.
We know it's not perfect.
And that's, kind of the point. Like, a lot of people, when they're trying to make a website for their business or a personal one, they just spend months just trying to get it perfect. And it's, it's never going to be perfect. And the assumptions that you have in the beginning, a lot of them are going to turn out to be wrong. So it's better just to get something up quickly that can do the job, and then take an iterative process from there of improving it based on feedback, based on what you learn, based on analytics data, research. There's a lot better things to base the website roadmap on than just your own initial assumptions before you even started. And even just getting like a basic MVP up like this takes a lot of time. Like, I don't know how long.
It's taken a lot of time.
We haven't been working on it full time or anything,
Yeah.
but like it has been months.
Yeah, true. But yeah, we're trying not to be like overly perfectionists with it. Like, yeah, just want to get the MVP out there and fail quickly and learn from our mistakes.
Succeed quickly, you mean?
Fail quickly, succeed even quicklier, more quickly.
Oh, there's a quotable quote.
Then the last page, that is not even a page really at the moment. We haven't been able to decide, do we need an about page or not? It's like, I know that many people are very split on these kinds of pages, and from what I have seen from my own research is that these pages usually don't get a lot of traffic. And CRO people would say that don't hide this important information to the low traffic websites, put this on your homepage. And I sort of agree, but then at the same time I kind of like about pages personally. Like, if a company has one, I will always check it out. But then at the same time, it's like, if you start a company and you have to write about yourself as a person, because our company is just us at the moment. So this would mean that this page requires information about us as people, I guess, which is always kind of cringy to write about, and it's just like weird. That's why we haven't been able to settle on what we want to say there.
Yeah, I've never been good at writing about myself.
And maybe this is the page for cat pictures. I don't know. But, we would be very interested in hearing your thoughts. Like, do you find about pages important? Do you check them when you check out new companies? What do you think about this? Would you want us to have an about page? Let us know. If you have social media, don't forget to link it in your footer at least.
Yeah, I think generally the social links get overused on most websites. People put them in pretty prominent locations. And when you think about it, like, if someone's going to click on one of these things and go off to another platform, like they're going to go to Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube, then like we said before, then they're going to be on that platform and they're probably just going to like start clicking other things. They're not on your website anymore. So it's, in terms of like the purpose of the website, those icons are pretty low in the priority level. Like, sure, you want them there to let people know about the platforms where you have a presence, and sometimes it makes sense to have the social sharing links on specific pieces of content to make it super easy for someone to share a blog article or email it to a friend or something like that. But usually these things are used kind of thoughtlessly and in places where it just doesn't make sense. This is our first attempt at the site, and the plan is to iterate on this quite a bit, and so it'll be changing over time, obviously. But we think it's in a pretty good place to publish and get the word out, and at least have a place where people can come and learn about the services that we do offer, because so far in our business it's been just word of mouth referral type of thing, which is fine, but in that sort of situation we kind of lose the opportunity to proactively communicate what services we're offering and sort of go for the more specific types of clients that we want to go for.
And as we said as well, there's so many decisions that go into even making this simple website. Mm-hmm. And there's so many other stuff that we still need to do, like tracking and creating more of the content and researching our own website behavior, and maybe doing more deliberate SEO things, kind of all that good stuff that websites need. That's kind of the first gist of it, and hopefully you guys liked it, and we can make more of this stuff to talk more about our thought process that goes into this. And see you next time. Okay, so do you want to say your name? Maybe start.
Okay. Hey, I'm Ryan.
I couldn't even make out your name.